Our theme for today was living your legacy in finance, family, and the future. And so I want you to imagine for a minute, what would it be like to be born a beautiful girl in a Jewish home and then losing both your mom and dad, all alone, and becoming an orphan? That's just a tragedy for a child. And still, her cousin came along and adopted her. And he raised her into a beautiful young woman. And he finally, when the king was looking for a woman to replace his queen, he asked her, the cousin asked her to go before the king and try to please him. And so she did, and she won his favor. And life changed. She began to receive beauty treatments for 6 months. Imagine that. She was given special food. She was assigned 7 maids, your whole table full of people, to serve her. And she was given the best place among women. I think you know who I'm talking about. It's Esther from the Bible. The story of Esther is a story of legacy. In all this transition to fame and power and glory, Esther did not reveal her nationality or her family background because her cousin Mordecai had forbidden her to. And instead, she remembered who she was, where she came from, where she was really loved, where her security was. She didn't burst with pride, but maintained humility, which is truly the grounding of all other virtue. And she embraced her commitments to her cousin Mordecai. When it was her turn to go to the king, she didn't ask him for anything. Think about that. He says, you can ask anything, and she asked for nothing. In silence, she won everyone's favor. The king made her queen. Now, with life, and even with fame and fortune, adversity comes. And the king's right-hand man, Haman, went in anger to the king to receive an edict to destroy all the Jews. And the reason he did it is because Esther's cousin wouldn't bow down to him. And it was at this point that Mordecai, Esther's cousin, sent her a message. Listen to it. And who knows but that you have come to royal position for such a time as this. That's true of you. Who knows that you have come to royal position for such a time as this? These words are for each of us. We have a God-given legacy that has been given to us for such a time as this. To grow together, to love deeply, to invest in the next generation, to give generously, to advance the kingdom of God. So how did Esther live out her God-given legacy? It says she fasted and prayed. Why? In order to fully surrender her life to God's purposes and not her own. And then she allowed adversity to develop her trust. That's not easy. My husband and I were given a vision to develop a renewal center for Christian leaders. And after a long time of praying, and then it finally coming about, and having ministry for about 3 years, the California wildfires came and burned it to the ground. And it was just at the time that we had stepped out in faith and my husband had left his corporate job to do the ministry full time. What do? How can we still let God lead us? Can we trust him in the dark as well as the light? When you surrender your plan to God, you need to be willing to wait. Seldom will your desires be answered immediately. For us, I think it was a 10-year process before we really had what God desired us to have. Just waiting through the hard times and the good times. And with each petition Esther made to the king, she gained more courage and trusted in God more, because unlike Haman, she didn't need to respond immediately. She could wait on God. What disciplines does it take to surrender to God's legacy for you in finances, in family, and in the future? Like Esther, it takes embracing your commitments. That's the discipline of love. To pursue and be curious about others and what their life might be like and how God might want to connect you. To be truthful and honest about yourself in that connection. It also takes being grateful for God's provisions. The discipline of remembering how faithful he has been to you. That's the thing that got us through. He got us the first renewal center. We only had that to look back to know that he would provide again. Can you look back and see God's goodness in your life? And let adversity develop your trust in him. The discipline of waiting. And since we're all women, I want to say, it takes the discipline of finding courage in your gender. Believing in that God made you the perfect complement to the man, and that together we can really invest in the kingdom of God. And so who you are in your gender is important, valuable, has purpose in advancing the kingdom of God. And finally, it's surrendering to God's plan and laying your own aside. That's not easy.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.